From the Mercy One studio.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.
Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. I'm Kelly Mesher-Collins with the Diocese of Des Moines. On today's show, we're visiting with two of our diocesan seminarians, Rodrigo Mayorga and Nick Smith, who will both be ordained in the transitional diaconate this evening at St Ambrose Cathedral in Des Moines. But before we get to today's interview, let's find out what's on the Bishop's mind.
I think all of us in the diocese have a kind of bounce in our step today with this great ordination tonight of Nick Smith and Rodrigo Mayorga, the men. Just high caliber men, just really great, but so real and so able to engage. I think their families have formed them, and then their seminary faculty at John Vianney and at St. Paul. So it's a day where we're going to boast in St Ambrose Cathedral. We have a nice live streaming setup now with 6 different cameras, so people can take part in that way if they'd like. Or obviously the presence, we're getting to that place where we can allow people, but certainly the families and guests of those two fine young men. Yeah, I had an interesting experience on Memorial Day. Memorial Day was a day, also the Feast of the Visitation. I was celebrating instead of at the cemetery. We celebrated St. Teresa Parish, and I'm there during the Mass, looking out, and then, oh my gosh, that's Joyce Burks. Joyce Burks was a woman in my first parish, Sacred Heart in Waterloo, and she has a daughter, Jody, who's there, and she had made so many vestments for me, and then she's an expert seamstress. In fact, when I was only ordained 3 years, she made a chasuble that has the emblem from the papal quilt of St. John Paul's visit to the Living History Farms in 1979. So it's incredibly stitched, and so I wore that at the St. Thomas More Center for their Mass, and there's a chance to bring that to bear. So nice. Obviously the land and our thanksgiving for that, but that marvelous space of joy, play, and faith, which is the St. Thomas More Center. So really appreciate the chance to be there as well. This week, I think is a nice prelude to our diaconate ordination, the Feast of St. Ephrem the Deacon, that 4th century Eastern doctor of the Church. It's so poetic in what he has, but so penetrating are his insights. And I think it kind of, as we're trying to emphasize Eucharistic renewal for our people, many different initiatives, as Father James spoke about last week, and the kind of the social media segments, my why that are being produced, different people, different ages. Why is Mass important to me? What do I look forward to in the Mass? And so I think this positive attraction, even as we'll eventually lift the dispensation for those who are capable of going to Mass, the dispensation from the Sunday obligation, the obligation on feast days, probably that's going to happen in later July, but stay tuned as that'll be officially communicated to everybody. But when we think about this sense of the Eucharist and this powerful sense in which the grape of mercy was pressed and gave the medicine of life to the peoples, that our Lord baptized humanity with the Holy Spirit. He nourished it with the medicine of life. As Ephrem continues to reflect on this mystery, which obviously set his heart, ignited it, that descent of the Holy Spirit is fire that affects the consecration of the bread and the wine. Fire and spirit drawing us in such way that we become like eagles that soar in our faith by means of the spiritual bread. Everyone becomes an eagle who reaches as far as paradise. And so obviously transcending the limits of this world, the borders of this world, we know in a different sense. Bishops from the United States, Central and South America gathered in early June, thinking about this whole challenging question of migration, a migration summit at the Mundelein Seminary in Chicago. And there was live connection in addition to prayer, women giving a Salvadoran immigrant her plight to leave her home as well. And so there's always a story, I think, that captures us. And as Cardinal Michael Czerny, the Undersecretary for the Vatican's Migrant and Refugees section, says, each of these dioceses is joined in some way as they encounter migrants, parishes of departure, parishes of transit, parishes of arrival, parishes of short and long-term settlement, and parishes of return. So, I know Sister Joyce Bloom was going down to work on the border on the Mexican side in early June, along with some Franciscan associates, to help people who are either returning or to meet those basic human needs, to clean them, to help combat skin diseases. So that ministry is to accept and care for those, and to liberate and rehabilitate those who've been trafficked. And so I think this calling brothers and sisters beyond borders, as we're all ignited by the fire of the Eucharist that unites us as one communion.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll welcome diocesan seminarians Rodrigo Mayorga and Nick Smith. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning provided by Bell Construction.
Bell Construction is a roofing company. They specialize in residential re-roofs, like commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494. Bell Construction.
Thank you, Big Red Q Quick Print, for underwriting the sports report. Family owned and operated since 1980, Big Red Q Quick Print is a full-service print shop ready to help you with all your printing needs with speed and accuracy. Forms, manuals, brochures, letterhead, envelopes, business cards, custom invitations, design, and bindery. Big Red Q Quick Print, located across from Merle Hay Mall. Online at bigredq-desmoines.com. Big Red Q Quick Print. We make printing easy.
Welcome back. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. On today's show, we're visiting with two of our diocesan seminarians, Rodrigo Mayorga and Nick Smith, who will both be ordained transitional deacons this evening at St Ambrose Cathedral in Des Moines.
So, Rodrigo and Nick, welcome, and on the very day that you are to be ordained. And so the heart, I hope, is in rhythm and everything, and that you have a core peace, even as there's both anticipation and maybe just a hint of nervousness, but that, I guess, helps us to cast ourselves on the Holy Spirit all the more as well. So this great day, Feast of the Sacred Heart. That's not why we chose the date. It's as Pope Francis has designated day for international sanctification of priests. And so you are priest in Genesis and this step toward transitional diaconate as well. But maybe just kind of let's start with that before we talk about more some of your personal background. But how do you view the transitional diaconate as something in itself, receiving the sacrament of orders in this way as something then to focus your heart, mind, and soul on, and not just, this is one more step, one more hoop to priesthood. So, Nick, maybe invite you to respond first.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you, Bishop, for having us on. It's a great honor and very much looking forward to tonight's ordination. It's all kind of wrapped up in a bundle of excitement. But yeah, you're right. And, the Feast of the Sacred Heart, really appropriate liturgical day to kind of enter into Jesus's diaconate. Right. It's, Jesus was a deacon too, in the way that he served, the way that he loved his disciples and the people he preached to and taught. And so really, I think for us, for me, as I've been reflecting on entering into the diaconate, right, it's not just another step towards the priesthood, but it's actually in its own right, a very special time to really enter into the mystery of the Lord's heart, right? How he loved his people and how he was consecrated totally to the Father. And so really just looking forward to that total gift, tonight. And so very excited.
Beautiful. And Rodrigo, are there aspects of the diaconal ministry that are just really speaking to your heart that you can't wait? Obviously, preparation, and you both have been involved in parishes where maybe some of these ministries that you've been given the opportunity, kind of in a precocious way, but now it'll be an expression of who you are. Rodrigo, anything about the diaconal ministry that's particularly appealing to you?
Yeah, I think that it's always striking seeing some bishops wearing two sets of vestments during ordinations. One of them is dalmatic, but also underneath it, you will often see them wearing the chasuble, of course, and underneath it, the dalmatic. And that's always striking to me because it really speaks of how permanent the service of the diaconate is and the character of the diaconate. So one of the things that's really appealing to me of the diaconate is just serving. I'm a very hands-on person, and I think that this dimension of service is also reflected in these beautiful liturgies presided by the bishop, where he wears a chasuble and a vestment underneath. So just simply the permanence of the diaconate. It's a step in which you enter holy orders, but it's also something in which you remain the rest of your life in the service that you began with. That's kind of the service that you will carry out the rest of your life. And so that's really, really appealing to me. It's not a stepping stone. It's something that you really step into.
Beautiful. And, were you to be being ordained in the midst of an Iowa winter, as Deacon Nick Stark was last December at St. Pius, your ordinary, yours truly, might be inclined to capture that symbolism of wearing both the dalmatic and the chasuble. But given the perspiration level, even last year as I was kneeling for the Litany of the Saints, I don't think that's going to be the case. Though, but yes, truly, once a deacon, always a deacon. But I'm going to save on the dry cleaning bills for everyone. So, but very good. Both kind of different paths, but obviously the Des Moines Diocese is where you converge, and St. Paul's Seminary where you've been together. And so, there's probably the oral tradition and some stories that you're not going to share, but just maybe some. Both of you come from families. You didn't come out of a vacuum, and so just talk about that, Nick, your upbringing and the parish connection.
Sure. So I grew up right here in Des Moines and have all my life. So. This is the soil I was planted in and have grown up. Oldest of 7 children in a Catholic family. Went through Catholic schools all the way through. Grew up at St. Augustine Parish on the west side of Des Moines and went through the parish school, Dowling Catholic High School. Of course
where I understand you were on the track and cross country team. Right?
That's right. Yeah. Played a lot of sports growing up. Was kind of into the ball sports as a kid. Baseball, basketball, football, all that. But turns out being tall and lanky is not really a ball sport kind of thing. And so I found a little more success on the running cross country course and the track. So I've continued.
Probably the tallest guy on the team then, right?
Probably, yeah. In fact, I was. But yeah, certainly enjoyed doing that all the way through. So that was sort of how I grew up. But all of us, as kids, were very different. So we certainly weren't. We're all very different. The Smith kids are, but
just had a sister graduate from Dowling Catholic. Yeah,
certainly did. Yeah, so that's number 4 who's gone through Dowling, and so yeah, we've all gone through Dowling and have enjoyed it, benefited from it very much. So right, and it was from there that I really started to discern the call of the priesthood and to enter the seminary. So I'm very indebted to my Catholic schooling and to my family.
So even as you were at Dowling, you were thinking of priesthood even then. So it wasn't something that happened later on.
Right. So Dowling was kind of the first point where the vocation started to really I started to think about it, and it started to maybe emerge for me, and certainly just through the influence of some good friends and Father Zatkowski was the chaplain there at that time, and just fostering just good fraternity amongst some of the young men there, and the sacramental opportunities started to dig into that a little bit more and grow my own spiritual life, and to see too that the vocation of the priesthood was something that could be real for someone like me. It's not just something that God calls people to, but that it's something He could want for me, and so to by the time I finished Dowling, it was really clear to me that I needed to at least give God a shot in the seminary.
And that willingness to listen. I won't try to project anything on you, but perhaps a little static once in a while from your siblings for oldest child syndrome or anything like that. Oldest brother here trying to. But any, with all the affirmation, was there any who kind of, what really priesthood? What are you thinking? Did you have to kind of sift through that? Certainly, and that continued even into the seminary, right? And like I said, there's kind of this idea that. God calls men to the priesthood. I knew that from growing up Catholic, and that their vocations, religious vocations. But something that I had to wrestle with, and I don't think I'm alone in this, but something that I had to wrestle with was, does God really want this for me? Because God doesn't just call people to the priesthood in general, but He calls specific people with all their strengths and weaknesses and quirks and everything. So. That was something that I kind of had to wrestle with. I had great support from my family the whole way through, and my parents were very supportive of my decision to go to the seminary. And then it was kind of a process through the college seminary and into even in the beginning of major seminary, just kind of really wrestling with that call for me. How does God want
use me as his priest, deacon, and priest in my life. Can this happen for me? Mm-hmm. And of course, I've come to the realization that yes, he has called me, and I take great joy in that. But certainly, it's something that we have to wrestle with.
Yeah, so it's not like, well, I'm doing the church a favor if I do this. It's like this humbling sense. Rodrigo, your path, maybe catapulted straight shot, or were there some winding turns along the way?
There were definitely some winding turns on the way. I think that people who have gotten to know me know this about me, but I am originally from Mexico, and as a kid growing up, 4 guys in my family and a girl. I was the youngest guy, so there's certainly that pressure of being the youngest boy. I had the great example of 2 older brothers who eventually became very successful in their own lives, and so going into the priesthood for them was just kind of certainly not in the radar for me. And as a Latino, we always want a good priest, but it's hard to give one of our own to the priesthood. So yeah, there were definitely some bumps in the way.
So we might infer that you're saying there was not glowing enthusiasm about this.
Not all the time, no.
And maybe even cold water being thrown on this.
Yeah. I always had their support. I always had tons of people's support, but also a lot of questions thrown out there. Are you sure about this? And are you sure you're ready to leave your family for this? Are you ready to not have a family of your own for this? And as an 18-year-old kid discerning priesthood, those are very hard questions to answer. But there was always a lot of peace. There was always a lot of peace in the decision that I was making. And yeah, the road is not always as smooth as one would want, but with God, God just makes everything smooth.
So I'm waiting for him to do that on a few fronts, but okay, I'll take your word for that.
Yeah.
But so you're obviously the proud son of St. Bernard Parish in Osceola, and your family is there as well. But still deep connections with Mexico, and family and relatives is in Mexico as well. So I think you're addressing something culturally that that's something we hope to call people who are Latino to see this gift, and that yes, it is a spiritual sacrifice. You will not be bearing flesh and blood grandchildren into the world, but the many spiritual children which will enrich your family, let alone the family of Des Moines. Either one of you, and I think this time let's go with Rodrigo first before Nick. At the actual diaconate ordination, you do make the promise of celibacy. That's when that happens. We don't wait till priesthood to do that. Can you talk about that in your dispositions of heart, or Feast of the Sacred Heart, and what the promise of celibacy means to you, Rodrigo?
Yeah. Well, I think that first of all, celibacy is a gift, and that's how I've experienced it myself. It is a gift, and it requires discipline, but I think that above all, it requires a lot of trust in God. Often we are certainly weak, but God wants to do great things through us, and if He has called us to the priesthood, I think that He will give us every single grace that we need to live out everything that is required for that mission. And so the celibacy, I think, requires a lot of trust and a lot of humility, knowing that by yourself you can do very little, but with Christ at your side and being configured to Him, you can do a lot, including living a celibate life. So I think that that's what it means for me. It's, first of all, a gift which requires a lot of trust that God will provide, and just humility, knowing that we can be very weak, but that with God, we can do a lot.
Thank you. That's beautiful. And Nick, St. Ephraim the deacon, we celebrated the great Eastern doctor of the Church, Syrian, who talks about both the Word and the Eucharist as kind of a burning ember we take into ourselves. But when that burning ember touches our heart in the way, the Eucharist and the Word, for you, celibacy or just this whole disposition of your passion in your heart?
Sure. And celibacy, let's not make any bones about it. It's a radical call. It's a radical vow to make in the midst of this world. But also, we can just see how it's really kind of a logical consequence of entering into the diaconate, the priesthood of Jesus Christ. Just we think about how a married couple makes vows to one another and how those vows protect their love and make stable their family. The children grow up in a home where they know that how their mother and father love each other, and for this, in a similar way for the deacon making the promise of celibacy, that's that vow of celibacy that really enables and protects that fidelity to the church and the fidelity to the Eucharist, the Word, and the ministry. And so, I look forward to the vow. Making that promise of celibacy as a dedication to God and a dedication to the church, knowing that, the Lord's going to be faithful in His part too, and it's not just a one-way street.
Marvelous. And again, our permanent deacons in the Des Moines Diocese, of which we have many, and, Des Moines has been very in the forefront of having that, and their wives, so that mutual vocation of marriage and the permanent diaconate. So there's a distinctive note and accent in all this, and so it's not essential, but there's a fittingness that I think can play itself out in this way. You'll both be taking on summer assignments. You'll be at St. John Basilica here with Father Aquinas Nichols. And Rodrigo, you'll be with Father Trevor Shequin, our worship director of the diocese. So neither one will you be allowed to be liturgical lounge lizards, and kind of kicking back in this way. So we're going to pause and take a break and come back in a moment.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by the Sarah Vocations Ministry, including the St. Sarah Club of Des Moines and the Sarah Club of Council Bluffs. Sarah is an apostolate of the worldwide Catholic Church dedicated to fostering and supporting priesthood and religious vocations. Sarahans strive to accomplish their mission through prayer, fellowship, and service to the bishop, priests, sisters, and all in religious formation, and in doing so to increase their own holiness. Learn more at joinsarah.org, joinserra.org. Thank you, Sarahans, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Thank you, Big Red Q Quick Print, for underwriting the sports report. Family owned and operated since 1980, Big Red Q Quick Print is a full-service print shop ready to help you with all your printing needs with speed and accuracy. Forms, manuals, brochures, letterhead, envelopes, business cards, custom invitations, design, and bindery. Big Red Q Quick Print, located across from Merle Hay Mall. Online at bigredq-desmoines.com. Big Red Q Quick Print. We make printing easy.
Welcome back. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. We're here with Nick Smith and Rodrigo Mayorga, who will be ordained tonight.
So again, we had Bishop Pates with us last weekend, and of course he's going to be with us for this ordination. A proud spiritual father as well, and so I get to be the one who reaps what another has sown. Obviously, and so many in your lives, but the great humbling privilege for me. You came through COVID that year in seminary, which you did stay at the seminary. So some people think it's like a monster already, but it was a kind of hidden life for many of you. And I was touched by the poignancy with which you and the Zoom reflections, both of you, among the rest of our group of seminarians. It was not easy, and yet I think that was kind of a crucible in which you were formed in a special way, and your spirituality had to be deepened. And so I won't ask you to share some of those personal things, but just maybe let's fast forward, because we're hoping to emerge, to have passed over largely through COVID. Obviously, we have to be not complacent in that regard. What, for you both, does the year look like as you now will have the imprint of orders upon you at the summer and beyond? Nick?
Yeah, great. So, it certainly was kind of a crucible, but looking ahead to the year, really look forward to exercising diaconate in a more specific, concrete way in the teaching parish. We each have a parish that we go to during our time in seminary, and we can exercise our ministry, and then also taking on a little bit of leadership at the seminary too, with being prefects the various floors, so we kind of. but the seminary.
Are there special emblems or you wear with a prefect?
Not right now, but that sounds like a good idea. We should probably make some. Rodrigo's very artistic, so I think we can give him that task.
Okay. Well, I'll be up there for the institution of lectors, so I'll look to see what you've developed.
We look forward to that.
Okay, yeah. Rodrigo, for you the same. And let me ask you a question, just to kind of jostle things a little bit. You're obviously fluently bilingual and everything else. Do people sometimes try to then kind of categorize you and say, well, you should be doing the Hispanic piece of this, or is that something you've encountered?
Yeah, that is certainly something that I've encountered, being bilingual. Here in the seminary, often seminarians will ask me, well, are you going to end up at a Hispanic parish? Or are you going to end up at a bilingual parish? And I'm like, I have no idea. But I know that.
And neither do I, by the way.
Yeah. And yet I know that I could probably serve in both. But I also know that I could probably serve at an Anglo parish because of my background. I'm not only bilingual, but I'm also bicultural. And so I grew up in the States. I can relate very well. And I think that my peers will attest to that, to both cultures. So, yeah, sometimes I'll be put in a box. You do this because you are either Latino or bilingual. But I think that those are very small boxes. While the church it's a larger mission than just being Latino or being able to relate to the Anglo community.
Well said. Is your teaching parish bilingual, or is it?
Yep. So my teaching parish is bilingual. There is, and not only bilingual, but really bicultural in a lot of ways. The Hispanic people that go there are not just from one country, but they're from all of Mexico, Central America, and even South America. So they're not only bilingual in themselves, but also bicultural as a Hispanic community. So that's another
beautiful reminder for us in terms of our own parishes too here in the diocese. So we've got about 40 plus seconds left. Any last minute, just bullet point thought about what would you say to a man? Do you have a one-liner for a man who might be considering seminary? Go.
Yeah.
Okay, Rodrigo, top that.
Take a step forward. Just take that step.
It's a great adventure, and if you even have the slightest inkling that God may be calling you, it's so worth it.
Wow. Well, you both take a step forward tonight and be close to where I am when I'm praying for you. Thank you. Thank you for being with us.
This has been another edition of Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. Thank you to our guests and all of our listeners on Iowa Catholic Radio and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.